So we're about to go on to 3 retrogrades. Well, Saturn already happened. Venus happened today. And Jupiter's coming up, and then they're all going to sync up with something else later. And so I've been hearing a lot of the same things from people. And I feel like everybody's like, Venus retrograde, your relationships on that. And it's not necessarily, I mean, maybe that's the case, but I don't think that's the case entirely or necessarily. I think that's a very superficial way of looking at it. I think Venus retrograde could be a really, really beautiful thing. And I think it's going to pick back some things. Like, sure, maybe you're going to have some difficulties with relationships, but I feel like that's also going to shine some light on why you're outsourcing your love and your happiness and your beauty to a third party or a second party or whatever, to something not you and source, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm going to do 2 demon cards and an angel card, 6 tarot cards, 9 number cards. So let's see. For Saturn in retrograde. What do I need to know for Saturn in retrograde? Okay, I'm on the ground because I'm going to need some space for these. This is Saturn retrograde. So of the 6 tarot cards you have, bottom of the deck was the Ace of Cups, which will, remember for later, but so you have these guys. Oh, this is difficult. The 3 of Wands, 9 of Pentacles, Queen of Swords, the Magician, and the 5 of Cups. Especially with numbers, 3s and 5s always, not always, but they read to me, it's like these moments of, I've built enough to keep me safe, and I can extend this much more to you, or not, or I need this much more to be safe. And so with this 3 of Wands, it's kind of like, this is the stability I have, I extend to you this grace. And it's an very interesting saffron. And I can't help but notice the woods, or like the orbs of red. So like heart energy. And then that 9 of Pentacles is this kind of growing, watering plants, flourishing energy. So I feel like it's like extending that grace is going to emanate, because all that you have at home and stability-wise within you is growing within you. If you cultivate a source of light that grows, that is a renewable resource, then you will be able to extend that grace. Queen of Swords, what a noble character, which is kind of center play in this. And again, kind of that of that stability energy, it is very much protecting that of which is yours. And I feel like that's very much something that people are operating in or toward, but maybe not so in a place that's emanating with heart energy and that's leading toward flourishing. Maybe it's coming from a place of fear instead, where you think these 3 wands you need and nobody else can have them. And rather than thinking that you do have that 9 of Pentacles, you see barren grounds. And so this is kind of that wake-up call that that's not the case. And very literally so in the real world, like it's the people, hoarding things or what have you, and you go to the grocery store and there's no more flour when you need it or what have you. Because, some dude thought that they needed 20 bags of it. And that's not the case. And this Queen of Swords is very much that noble kind of cause and energy, and intuitively so. Definitely ruled by all of these purples. So the only major arcana card follows that in the Magician, although he was reversed. Not that that's a bad thing. I feel like this is, again, kind of that internalized making shit happen. and being the creator of your circumstances right now. For every, there's obviously things we can't control, but what we can control within our house and within our bodies, being the creator of those circumstances, and operating in a place of lack is what stresses your bodies out and holds on to all that like fatty tissue, like very literally in your body. When your body thinks that it's going to starve, it's going to hold on to those calories more, and that's kind of what we're doing with physical belongings, or you know, and like maybe not so much with our energy, but with physical things. But we can cultivate within that a place of plenty. And so that Five of Cups is also kind of that purging of that which is too much or that which is not enough. And so I feel like it's, you know, not holding on to those rotting things, you know, like just because your fridge is full doesn't mean that if something goes bad, you don't throw it out. And when it's so important to be wary of what we have to give, like even if you look at those, it's like, it's a dark blue. So I feel like dump the negative parts of you out too, because once this is over, we're all gonna want to like make new friends and like go out on the town and all that, but nobody's gonna want to fucking hang out with you either if like you've still got all this baggage and you didn't take this time to sort of sweep out the old and bring in the new, and yeah, dump out your fucking dirty cups. And so that is like your golden cup knowledge. This Ace of Cups and the Magician, I feel like, are definitely both cards of like, you can have a full cup if you want to look at it that way and you want to put in that kind of effort. Like a magician just doesn't happen. A magician has to put that intent into it, and put positivity into everything, into what they're cultivating for themselves and to what they're giving out into the world, where that Three of Wands comes back in, and that Queen of Wands with what you have of yourself. That makes sense. And so with your numbers, we have an Ace of Spades, which is very much kind of that Queen of Wands energy. It's work. And when it comes to this Jupiter retrograde, this is Saturn retrograde. When it comes to Saturn retrograde, it very much has to do with disciplines and tasks and what else? Disciplines and tasks and with Saturn retrograde, it definitely has to do with disciplines and tasks and the things that maybe we're neglecting to sort of keep on our checklist or check off of our checklist, even with all of this time. And sometimes that's the most important shit. Like, let's not save the hard stuff for last, because that hard stuff is a lot of internal work, and a lot of growing in yourself and in your heart. And I think that's where that Venus retrograde is going to come into play. Your relationships are going to fall apart, sure, maybe, if you don't already love yourself. I think that's what this Venus retrograde is going to give us an opportunity to see. But we'll touch on that more later. So you have Ace of Spades, and Jack of Diamonds, and I feel like that's, again, operating from a place of lack often stems from jealousy, envy, looking at other people and wishing you had, the grass is greener on the other side, yada, 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 wishing you had something somebody else has. And that's a sort of perpetual misery. That is something that only you and the way you're looking at that situation can really change. Because there will always be somebody prettier, smarter. There will always be somebody prettier or smarter or whatever if you look at it that way. But you have to look at it in the context of like, but I'm the only person that thinks the way that I do, that lives the way that I do, that da-da-da-da-da. There's a uniqueness in everybody. That's the magician in us too. And cultivating that love is also where we find the things that we need to purge and need to clean ourselves up, and the things that we can find that are gifts, that are beautiful things to share with the world, and truly that garden. and the grass is greener on this motherfucking side, and not the other side. The Ace of Hearts follows that, and is inverted, and so I feel like that's very much, it doesn't have to necessarily regard to like what you're doing professionally. It can absolutely just be what it is that gives you value, what it is that makes you feel savory about yourself. And so following that is the Ace or Eight of Clubs, and it's this fucking rad zombie sort of like mixing the stew, and like what goes into a stew. It's like all of these random things that you don't think matter, and are just going bad, and you want to throw it out, but you can totally sit it all together and find something nourishing in that, and find something savory in that, and things that you maybe never didn't think people appreciated together, but it is your kind of superpower, I suppose. But finding what that is for yourself is going to be that journey. That journey and what will feel your magician card. So you have 3 of diamonds, 10 of diamonds. I feel like it's going to be, obviously, because these planets are doing some crazy stuff, but you have the 3 of diamonds and the 10 of diamonds, so I feel like numbers can be very literal, so I feel like it's something that, like, it's a mindset, and it's literally, like, it feels like it's going to be impossible, but it's a mindset that's totally just going to, like, flip. It's going to feel like a night and day decision, where you're just, like, or you're going to see the benefits in, like, a night and day kind of way. And it's going to be, like, I actively make this choice to, love myself, treat myself better, see the best in myself, try my best, and you're going to see the results of that. What feels like overnight is what I'm getting from that. And so then you have 5 of spades and the 3 of hearts. Interesting. So you kind of have these very top high calling cards, and it skyrockets, and then it kind of just comes back down. Comes back down to the Queen of Hearts, which was the sort of mood for the deck. So it's kind of like, one of my friends told me once that, like, your philosophy has to work from top to bottom for it to, like, be a thing, for it to work, for it to matter, I guess. So that's always kind of rang in my ears, like it's kind of like the mathematic thing too, like a rectangle, a square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle can't be a square. Oh God, where am I going with this? But when you build that kind of stability, top to bottom, very like linear, you can't break through it. You have strength in that foundation, and so grounding is going to be huge for all of this transition right now. Grounding and cultivating that sacred space. And as I'm saying this like pillar thing, it's a huge central point of this magician card too. It's this central energy of strength. Likewise, and my favorite part about the Queen of Swords or the Ace of Swords or King of Swords, it always makes me feel like spine made out of steel, posture, like where our heart space is open and where our heart space is confident, and with that 3 of Wands too, like so much structure and confidence and uprightness that you can breathe through and create from that, and breathe past and blow some of this old shit away. And so as I'm saying all of this, 2 of the top 3 were demon cards. One of these I'm going to pull a book for because I don't know it that intuitively, but the first one was brooms. And it says, an old and powerful symbol and tool of witchcraft, traditional vehicles for magical travel, essential elements of various rituals, and useful for sweeping up dust. And also, if you know anything about witchcraft, it's like you sweep to, a specific direction or out of your house and kind of banish negative energy. That very much as a mental practice in our lives is going to be significant for things that we think are, too hard or impossible, or, require more work. It's really going to be like as easy as just wiping that shit away. Like, that's kind of our only choice right now. And like I said, with that 3 and that 10, that talks about astral projection, and it's like, you know, you're here and then you're not. And that speed, I feel like once you make these decisions to see what you have and what you value and what that means internally, you're going to see that project and that result very quickly. Let's look up Habarim. Habarim. A deer demon. These were lovely gifts, and I'm still kind of learning all of them. But I do know some of them from my own fun. Let's see. There we go. Beware of sharp wit and cunning, becoming a destructive force if not tempered with consideration. Also goes by the name of Aim or Aim, depending on the demonologist. Duke of Hell in command of 26 military units. Appears in the form of a handsome man, but he can never be mistaken for human. He has 2 smaller heads on either side of the man's head in the middle, those of a serpent and a cat. He also manifests before conjurers riding on a viper and carrying a flaming torch. Interesting. Interesting, because those animals in the medicine wheel to me represent like a very four-legged and serpentine nature, which are kind of like action elements, which are usually east-west. And so we've had this very like perpendicular energy with these pillars of strength. Habarim is telling you to channel those action elements wisely. And again, with that magician card, it's kind of like I don't want to say reap what you sow, but what you put out is what you're kind of going to make with it. It's like that fucking water experiment where if you like say nice things to your water, it will, crystallize. But if you say terrible things to it, it's going to like rot and turn into like toxicity. And we have to think about that when it comes to our bodies, because it's 75-80% of our bodies are water. That needs to be a level of healing we take as well. And the steps that we need to take to heal as well. Mother Nature is healing herself, so this is our time for we've got to do what she's doing too, so that we can all come out of this way better. Speaking of which, I'm very thirsty, as I'm talking a lot. I drink more water when I drink it out of a wine glass, because I feel fancy. Oh, so good. Alright. The torch carried by Habarim is not for decoration. Which again kind of speaks to that too much, not enough. Let's not be superfluous right now. Because it's just going to be distracting. Cut away the fat. With it, Habarim is said to set anything alight, whether it be a building, a person, or a whole city. Habarim is, by all accounts, a witty and intelligent demon who will answer all manner of questions truthfully and in good manner. Again, it kind of, don't want to be that dick, but he's being a little bit more strict about it. That reap what you sow vibe, and it's what did he just say? To answer truthfully. So we're going to see these results very quickly, but very literally and boldly as well, in that context. But in his tendency to destruction, carries even into conversations. It is said that Habarim delights in using his sharp tongue to cut down those who summon him and their friends and foes alike. Just like the fire he wields, Habarim's wit does not care what it destroys, it only wants more fuel. Interesting. Yeah. Again, this speaks to the too much and the not enough, and what a perpetual cycle seeing the grass is greener on the other side kind of mindset is, because once we reach our goals, it's always like cool, new goal, and that's a beautiful thing, it's a creative thing, that's what drives us, that's what we thrive on. But at the same time, when we're distracted by having more piddly shit that doesn't matter, we're not going to rid ourselves of the darkness that we need to. We're not sweeping out the bullshit like we really need to. And you're ultimately going to see the results of that. And, you know, just like with pollution, you know, the more you pump into the earth, it's going to be harder to breathe. And you're going to find it harder to breathe in your own space if you don't take some time to really clear that out, if that makes sense. So last of the pull for these is this bad boy. Good boy. He's an angel card. I mean, they're bad boys too. Suit of Soul Purpose Angels, Raheel, the guardian angel of 4 winds. Those 4 elements again. I don't know why I put 2 fingers. Card of healing, grounding, and building with power of winds. That's fucking awesome. Because there's, especially with numbers, people will read wands and swords as different things. But usually it's like earth and air. So we've got that kind of like reiterated so that nobody can really confuse it, which is really cool. They're like leaving nothing up for grabs. Raheel offers you the power of his 4 cardinal winds to lift and heal your spirit, suggesting that you learn to hear the wind's melodies and explore how to make any or all of their harmonies your own. That inverted magician card, that like internal magic shit. Raheel Guardians, Raheel Guardians, this awesome energy, an unforeseen force that can actually help coordinate heart and soul journey. Oof. That's awesome. Jesus, I'm too excited. Hold on. Within the north wind is the power to isolate and remove stubborn mindsets. Saturn in retrograde is also like making peace with isolation, which like very literally is going on, but it means that in multiple ways. Remove stubborn mindsets within the south wind. Encourages blah 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 blah. Within the north wind is the power to isolate and remove stubborn mindsets, while the south wind encourages the growth of green power of nature to expand heart and positive emotions. Again, that like green energy. I love this. There is something else radiating green. Yes, she's in a green dress, which I knew was something. I'm just like I wait for the colors to say what they mean, and it's very much like wearing this green. So we're not talking about like literal plants, like you growing. We're not talking about like relationships. We're talking about you growing and you wearing this beautiful green silk dress. I also just finished this awesome book about this dude tripping balls, and he saw this beautiful chick in this like green silk gown. If you're into like weird shit, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Let me not get too into that. But yeah, like manifesting mad heart energy right now. Connect with the earth ground, and you're going to see some really, really beautiful results. Almost instantly. Like she speaks to you right away, I'm telling you. Okay. The west wind is gentle and comforting, while the east wind invigorates and blows in new opportunities. Again, that brooms. Like, we've got one constantly going. We got to clear out some shit so we can bring in some new shit. Invigorates and blows in new opportunities. Breathe in the wind songs with Raheel to use these various powers for self and others. That 3 of Wands, giving and taking energy. Oh, so good. Use these various powers for yourself and others as necessary. Raheel's winds are invisible and mysterious, part of the irresistible force of Earth. We don't fully understand their origins. They reach from the depths to the celestial heights. Again, that top to bottom energy. The realms of the angels themselves, then returning, carrying the elements to transmit this power to us below. Again, you had that top high cards and like coming back down. I feel like this retrograde may seem scary, but don't go into it with fear. If you go into it with excitement and like giving it your all, like you have angels on your sides. You have all of astrology kind of in your favor in that context. Raheel's winds are invisible and mysterious, part of the invisible force of the earth. We don't fully understand their origins. They reach from the depths to the celestial heights. The realms of the angels themselves then return, carrying the elements to transmit this power to us below. Together they are four square, an image of grounding and balance, from which dizzying new heights may be attained. Your future embraces this image, and from firm foundations you will repattern and or build new forms, concepts, or ideas, as your inspirational soul purpose comes to pass. Fuck yes. That's amazing. Wait, my bad. I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, if there's anything you're even thinking about cutting back, like, do not let it hold you back. We do not have the time to fuck around with bullshit right now. Just let it go. Like, and I know how hard it is. I've had to do that with some very difficult stuff. I know it's difficult. But it's worth it. It's gonna be so fucking worth it. That's all I can tell you. You're gonna be in such a magical place with it. Okay, so sweep some old shit out. That's our Saturn retrograde. Okay, we're gonna. All right. What do we need to know for Venus retrograde? So these are some really intense cards. So to start off, bottom of the deck, the Six of Swords, inverted. I should have shown that to you, Brett said. Six of Swords, beautiful card, but inverted. That's not a bad thing. Like, none of these are very bright cards, but they're very intense cards. I think the, like, hardest is you have the Ten of Pentacles inverse and the Seven of Wands inverse. Well, I guess they're all inverse, so I don't know if that happens. Does that happen? Like, they're fine. What that says to me is this is very much like everybody keeps talking about, like, oh, you're gonna break up and, like, Venus in retrograde, da, 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 da. Like, no, I don't think that's what it is at all. Like, cool, we flip them back over, like, and read them upright. It's the same thing. It's gonna be the same thing. Or it's trying to tell you the same thing. Internalize this shit. I love this because, like, I wear glasses, but I like not wearing glasses when I do tarot because, like, I don't know, shit kind of blurs. And this is very much this cornucopia, its central point is source. It looks kind of like it's coming out of the sun or like a stairway to heaven, but it's like a stairway to you, dude. Yeah, that Ten of Pentacles, like cool, upright is abundance. Inverse is like, yo, you are your abundance. There's like it's like Saturn and then fucking retrograde was talking about, you know, grounding. This is why, because when you ground, you connect very wholly to source, to that solar energy right there, to that source energy, and that in turn fills your heart with more of you, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Grounding is very scientifically proven to, like, minimize inflammation and yada yada yada. But that's the love that I think a lot of us are lacking, that I think this Venus retrograde is going to give us an opportunity to really tune into. And then okay, we're going to get to that. So following that is the Seven of Wands, and I feel like it's very much, you know, swatting away negative thoughts, swatting away, like, upright, it's very much like external expectations and stuff, and while that's still something that, like, we find ourselves kind of pushing back even now, this is very much about, like, the things we say to ourselves and, like, that negative self-talk and stuff. Like, how do we expect romance in our lives and, you know, somebody to, like, fucking swoon over us when we can't even speak highly of ourselves or look in the mirror and see, like, so much worth and, like, worthwhile. That's very much with this. And okay, like, we're gonna get to it. This is, you know, all of those negative thoughts. that, you know, you're lazy, you're fat, you're ugly, like, why is he with you? Why does she love you? Whatever that is. This is fighting that. And so this red energy is very, like, and it's kind of like his panties too. It's, you know, not off to chakras, like, not off to, like, fire elements, not off to, like, creative energy, but desire as well. And, like, you know, that desire to exceed can also be the, like, how do I explain this? It's the same momentum, but when you have heat in your central point, you can bounce that off. Does that make sense? Like, you can create sort of that own gravitational pull of yourself. And that's kind of what he's doing here, is where I'm going with that. So then you have Page of Pentacles, which is very much, you know, this beautiful offering, you know, this golden, he's very like chill vibe face. And it's a beautiful scene. You know, we've got like stars and mountains, and Ace of Pentacles is kind of like, it's not like a wish card per se, but it's very much a wish card. And so, funny thing, if you look at this, and I'll show you in just a second. But so there's this interesting energy going on here. So the Page of Pentacles is the central, and then you have the Devil and the Three of Cups. Three of Swords, and it's almost like, so the Devil's inverted. It's almost like he's cutting into the sun to shift it into that, and then these two, it kind of takes that energy like into a figure eight. God, I need a better way to show you this. Which is how energy flows. And that's very much what relationships are about. It's very much give and take. And like, how do we practice this with other people, but we can't even do it to ourselves? And I think that's very much something to sort of investigate with this time now. Yeah, there's so much motion here, but it's stagnant. It's stagnant if you want it to be. It's stagnant if you don't do anything with it. And that kind of goes back to this desire too, is like, desire is what fuels us, but it's also what can be like our undoing. And it's what you make of it. You know, desire is what, you know, makes you a go-getter and like a fucking entrepreneur or whatever. But desire is also, you know, what makes you an addict. Or, you know, and it's funny territory for anything like me that has an addictive personality. So, you know, it's an incredible time to kind of like pick your bunnies and do some research. So going into your numbers, bottom of the deck is your Jack of Hearts, and the first of the cards is Two of Clubs. Jack of Hearts inverse. And Two of Clubs. So I feel like, okay, on a literal sense, if we're talking relationships, I feel like there may be some very strong connections being made, because of this angel card that's staring me down in the face right now. And I've had it with, like we know each other pretty well. In which case, this Jack of Hearts could be somebody very, very charming, like almost like sultry. But it could also be that it's just finding that sultriness in you again, and I like again, that savory kind of thing. But finding that kind of like sexy cowboy in you, I guess, is my and maybe that means, you know, new perspective, or looking in new places, or slowing down a bit and not looking at all. And I don't mean to be rude saying that. That is a funny thing to get from this card, but I absolutely think that's true. And so following that, you have the Seven of Clubs and the King of Hearts. She's like all shopping, and he's like already demanding more. She's upright and he is not. So they're not even looking at they're not looking at each other, not meeting in the middle. I feel like this is kind of like foreboding of these two fours. Excuse me. I feel like it's kind of like yo, you've got some paths to take. And okay, because you have, oh wow. Because you have the Death and the Three of Swords, I feel like it's like, yo, you got some choices to make. And if you don't want to make them, you're going to find yourself always like kind of like looking in the wrong direction and like without, if that makes sense. like distracting even. But if not, and it like all of these dark cards, all of these black cards, this Ten of Spades is like closing your eyes, like tuning in. Like I feel like when you feel most intimate isn't even necessarily like when you're seeing physically. That's almost a distraction. When you don't have sight, and if there's any kinksters out there, if you don't have sight, your smell kind of heightens, your sense kind of heightens, your sense of touch totally heightens. And so I feel like it's very much that. Sort of close your eyes and that's how you'll intuitively know what feels good. In a very, very sexual sense as well. Like close your eyes, take a shot in the dark. And, you'll find yourself very rewarded inside. But at the same time, internalize that and use that for outside life too, not just in the bedroom. Sometimes it's the unexpected that's really worthwhile. And this Three of Swords is a very intimidating card for a lot of people, but I love it. And not only because it's beautiful, but it's kind of like really like wrenching out the stain in something, it makes me think like sopping, pouring blood, which is powerful, which is, it's intensity, it's love, it's sacrifice, like what are you passionate for? Like there's so much power behind that makes me really happy. So I feel like this Death card and these numbers are both like, yo, make some cuts, or you're gonna be like stuck in this like infinity loop, what feels like by yourself. And if that's with somebody else, then maybe you're tossing back and forth, the same or not, and too much or not enough, and or like maybe like perpetually bickering. There's a lot of energy that's sort of like it's not eye to eye, or there's no eyes. So if this does have something to do with somebody else, this is, and maybe it's just kind of combative, but I definitely feel like that's internal monologue as well. Maybe your relationship is fucking awesome, in which case, party on. But internally, you're still kind of battling with yourself to, get up and brush your teeth because you feel terrible, which is fine and is fair. But this Venus retrograde is going to give you a chance to really, look with new eyes and see beauty and hopefully cultivate that for the long run. So that you perpetually have this internal source of love and beauty for yourself that is a renewable resource and goes very far, and can cut away what isn't needed and is a source of plenty for everything that is necessary. So very positive, but can be very tough. So we'll see. Your demons. He's now High Prince, who commands 66 military units. You have Tap and Rahovart. neither of which I really know too intuitively. So we're going to see. Tap was our first. I hope I am pronouncing that right, my dear friend. There we go. Tap is also known as Kap, is a powerful prince who presides over 4 of the principal kings of Hell, as well as commanding 66 military units of his own. According to Wyer's Pseudemonarchia Demonium, he is a fallen angel who once held a rank in the heavenly order of powers. Tap is allegedly a very powerful demon with many gifts and abilities, but his areas of particular expertise seem to be related to the areas of travel and expanding the summoner's horizons, both physically and mentally. Interesting. Maybe you feel like your partner's holding you back, or their demeaning is holding you back. And very realistically, I think all of us have a piece of us that is that unideal partner in our head talking shit. Gotta deal with that. Gotta deal with that. Among the gifts specifically mentioned in the descriptions of Tap are his abilities to transport men immediately from one country to another, and to teach them the languages, philosophies, and arts of many different cultures and societies. Given his position in Hell and his particular set of skills, it seems that Tap may hold many of the qualities of a capable diplomat. Indeed, he is said to be able to bring people together in better understanding or to drive people apart by careful exploitation of their differences just as easily. Focus on travel and expanding your horizons, explore new cultures, and gain knowledge. Interesting. Expanding of horizons in general. And you know what? The funny thing is, we are our own worst enemies, and we are probably the main people telling us no. And when you find pure love in yourself, and, find that passion in you, and that source, that you find that relationship with source, it broadens a lot of horizons, and it does open up opportunities and breaks boundaries beyond belief. So party on self-love. I feel like that is going to be a huge lesson in this Venus retrograde. Let's see what falls. Rahovats. Is a demon about which we know very little. What we do know is that he is mentioned in an undated book called Moralite, published in Normandy. He is said to be a companion of Satan, and he carries a basket of souls, of curmudgeons. Interesting. I love that he has, or that they don't know that much about him, because that kind of reiterates the expansion of possibility that is very, very possible when you cultivate a sense of self-love and, a balance give and take in your relationships. Yeah, fuck yeah, party on. As an entry, the above is not much to be getting on with. Such a tiny mention, see also my cal page, Such tiny mention seems like little more than a dead end, or perhaps even a character of brief fiction. However, that Rahavart's basket is said only to contain one type of soul is worth exploring. It's said to contain one type of soul is worth exploring. Surely there are souls far more worthy of hell than the curmudgeons, the ill-tempered, murderers, liars, all manner of evil individuals seem worse than a surly person. But the fact is that we too often avoid and shun those who are grumpy, especially the elderly. Those angry individuals are often very lonely and harsh because they have years of practice at being alone and angry. Focus on seeing past the harsh armor of age and experience. Many sharp or grumpy individuals are simply harsh because life has taught them to expect the worst of others. So they show the worst of themselves first. Wow, that's fucking rad. And also that, nobody wants to hang out with you nobody wants to be the only reason that you love yourself. Nobody can be. Nobody can be the only reason that you're here. So I feel like it's very much that, you know, cultivating a sense of knowing your own beauty. You know, you can't constantly like outsource that, because that will eventually get snuffed the fuck out. But when you constantly, you know your worth, nobody can take that away from you. I feel like, fuck yeah, that's a fucking killer energy. Sorry, my hair keeps getting in my face. Fuck yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. We got one more. Where's this dragon? Dragon. Ta-da. The feathered dragon of alchemy and revelation, which is fucking rad, because these cards in the middle, all those tarot cards kind of doing that like infinity thing, that is so and then there's a breathing thing too that's like expanding and like, all right, we're gonna get down to it. The card of alchemy leading to unity consciousness links Pistis, Sophia, Dakiel, Raphael, and Gabrielle. I did say earlier, if there's anybody new that may be being very important, or, you know, very, seems to go very, very easily to and fro. If there's an existing relationship, I think that's where maybe that, conflict, that surliness came in, in which case we're going back and forth, negatively. So I just wanted to clarify that. This primeval creature of alchemy offers you self-transformation arising out of grounding and balance. Literally all we talked about in Saturn retrograde. He reveals he can help you to achieve heart's desire if you are willing to accept his flame of orange-red primal fire. Which we have a lot of major oranges in here too. Oh balls. Oh balls. Okay. So these were the first two, and then we've got this. And so we've got all black, like, work cards in your numbers, but there's 3 red ones. And so we've got, like, that bottom of the deck, Jack of Hearts, but then you have the King of Diamonds and the 6 of Diamonds. So I feel like, again, that one was kind of, like, foreboding, and the other is, like, if you don't, like, this is going to be a great fucking shot. Fire of innovation. This is the fire of innovation. Breathe it into your lower self, willing it to heal and ground your energy centers, before building it through your heart to manifest a dazzling golden phoenix of rebirth. Dragon's vibration is a higher form of the caduceus, unified to embody both masculine and feminine energies. His golden body links to wisdom of fire and earth, while her silvery feathers signify a connection to air and angelic grace. Dragon's tail ends with crystal feathers. She guards the stargate to higher consciousness and revelation. Dragon says that with masculine gold and feminine silver balance centered in your own heart, you have the power to retrieve her ancient knowledge of spiritual alchemy. When you harmonize your own gold and silver energy rays, they flow from base of spine through each chakra, forming 2 symmetrical wisdom spirals that unify at your brow. Then as you move to crown and unity consciousness, Dragon reveals that yours are the silver wings, for you stand at the angel star gate. Fuck yeah. Okay, so there's a breathing technique that I learned like years ago. I don't even know anymore. But it generates heat. Like, I'm always cold, but I love it in the winter because it kind of helps. But it's, you know, like, kind of ab workout, but it is also like a kundalini exercise. And also just generates heat. And it's on that inhale, you kind of, like, feel your gut expanding, and visually view it sort of laterally. Is that the word? Horizontally. Like a glow widening. And then that glow goes from spanning across the bottom, and on that exhale shoots out. So inhale, expansion, exhale, shoot out. Try it. Yeah, I don't know, that's intense. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be fire. there's going to be a lot of energy, but the thing is, like I said, with the desire, it'll be what you make of it. You've got to find the source of, find the source of what that light is and find union in it, and make that your central point, because otherwise you've got chaos kind of, not chaos, but finding that and balancing it, and keeping that balance to and fro. Whether that's in a relationship or whether that's with yourself, it's an equal principle. If that's in a new thing, even more so, party on. But yeah, and yeah, that was intense. That was a lot. Okay. What do we need to know for Jupiter retrograde? Jupiter retrograde. The middle of this is the Chariot. Literally the ability to overcome any obstacle. And with like ancestral magic, if that rings any bells. Now the two on either side, we've got Four of Wands, and the King of Cups inverted, and then Eight of Wands, and the Knight of Swords not inverted. And I love the Eight of Wands. It's a very powerful card for me. The King of Cups and the King of Swords on either end. We're all feeling very unstable emotionally at times, and while we feel that may be not normal, or we may be hiding how intense it is, because, I don't know, not everybody feels it's appropriate to talk about how intense it can be. That may feel like what's toppling you now, but I promise you, if you get on your grounding and you get on, like, doing your shit, it's going to open up a new door of creativity, of possibility. And the Four of Wands is typically like the obstacle of like, look a different direction. But if you get grounded, like ground that emotion, like it's already going, like it's gonna be already open of itself, not something that you need to like change your head on. Which is the beauty and the blessing of that Chariot card. Now that Eight of Wands is very powerful, like literal physical like manifestation. If you know anything about physics and energy and like the way, I don't know, all of our skin receives all of that, is very much that mental image for me. It's kind of like all of our energy cultivating and everything that we can create with that, from the fingers, like from our tips of our fingers and beyond. And so King of Cups reversed, and then Knight of Swords reversed. So, and I think, you know, going back to that Venus retrograde, we have the Queen of Swords, and then your Jupiters, you have the King of Swords. So this is, and that fucking Kundalini energy from before, cultivating both of these, like the tenderness in one is going to cultivate the like fucking knight in shining armor in another to some degree, and like for ourselves, like this is knight in shining armor for like our own internal passions and like emotions and intuitive sort of atmosphere, ethereal perhaps, and ruling that Ten of Swords, not ruling, the Ten of Swords was the bottom of the deck. I feel like this is the extreme example of not heeding those warnings, like a bleeding tree with all of these daggers in, but like I said with the Three of Hearts, like that blood is healing to me. And the funny thing is with a bleeding tree, that sap is actually great for wounds, and can help you heal faster. So again, it's kind of taking that, we can churn negative, like intake negative energy, churn it out as positive energy. Plants do that. They take our toxins and turn it into oxygen, and we turn our oxygen into their food. you know, the air feeds the ground and the ground feeds the air, and it feeds, you know, like it's cyclical. But we have to tap into that renewable resourceness, and how we can protect that, both with giving our space the giving ourselves the space to feel all of it intensely, so that we are aware of it, and also that so that we know what to do with it. Cultivating that femininity, and then cultivating the masculinity of ourselves, and being able to move forward productively with it and take action from that. Like, the creative energy is cultivated in the female aspect in this Venus retrograde. This Saturn retrograde, this Jupiter retrograde is going to be the masculine counterpart of that, and sort of taking all of that creativity and forcing it out into the world, and protecting it from outside sources, or like outside interference, if that makes sense. Bottom of your numbers was King of Spades, which is kind of like the Queen of Swords, King of Swords. And he is shoveling. If you live in Chicago, you know how fucking terrible this is. It's a dude that does what he fucking needs to do. And sort of that was the mood of the deck. So that kind of energy that you're channeling. 8 of Swords starting. 5 of Diamonds. 5 of Clubs. It's a lot of blood. You had the 4 of Wands, that inverted door, and then you have the 5 of Wands. It's kind of like inverted perspective in that manner as well. So you have 8 of Spades and 5 of Wands. And Queen of Swords and the Ace of Clubs. There you go. I forget sometimes. There's like a taking out of wastefulness and like scrubbing it clean, because the black snow is the snow that melts, and we don't really, or like the mushy shit, we don't really have to worry about. But there's some clearing in order, and some cleaning. Saturn rules our faith in a lot of things. This is all coming from a grand perspective, which makes so much sense in this King of Cups and this King of Swords. But when we get to these like little tasks, Ace of Clubs is kind of like unlocking that door too. Ace of Clubs and Ace of Diamonds. This is going to be the like major macroscopic and like magnifier of all of this work that is put in an energy with the other 2 planets. This is going to magnify all of this energy, I'm sure. And we'll get into that in a second. But I feel like it's also maybe where we're focusing on some things, and like lofty desires may not feel plausible, but again, we get to those, that negative self-talk is a doorway that you're closing for yourself. But where we do not do that, and where we take advantage of all of this flipping of the script and work, is maybe where we will see flight on some things and some ideas and some union, because there's a lot of that. And no, I don't think it is relationships. I think if you go into Venus retrograde thinking that it's only about relationships, you're going to fuck yourself over, is what I think. And it's going to, tear your relationship apart, because you're not doing the work that you need to be doing inside, and taking that Venus and looking at yourself. Venus is you. How can we make that you? How can we make that feel like you? Like it does all the good things in life. So where do we allow that? Where do we allow that? So our demons are Lucifer and Azazel, the fallen angel whose name is also that of the morning star, planet Venus, which is also known as the bringer of the dawn. Saturn goes into retrograde a day after Venus. These two are like hand in hand. Azazel is the rise of the scapegoat. He is shown here holding Satan's imperial flag. Okay. 2 seconds. My dear Lucifer. The great thing is historically Lucifer may not even really be a dude. He appears very feminine. Okay. Lucifer is one of the most difficult demons to summarize, as there are hundreds of books, stories, and mythological references to the name. Some use the name Lucifer, Latin for morning star, as the name of Satan before his fall from heaven, while others believe that Lucifer is a separate demon. In this text, we will focus on Cartomancy's description of the demon. Not an alias for Satan, but as a demon who is the king of the eastern region of hell and is often mistaken for the devil. Little do you know, when you only get your demon resources from major nonsense. Cartomancy's Lucifer appears as a young boy with a pretty face. Even when angry, the demon never changes to a form that is anything but beautiful. There you go. Anything but beautiful. The name Lucifer was often used or alleged in the rituals and sabbaths of European witches. Lucifer was known to appear at some of these gatherings. In fact, a favorite childlike trick of the demon was to pull witches off of their brooms while they were en route to the gatherings. But after giving them a playful fright, he would then carry them to the sabbath on his shoulders. Although Lucifer is sometimes mischievous, he is said to be very strict about justice in hell. Focus on finding sympathy and understanding for those with whom there is no agreement, even enemies. Again, kind of goes back to, everything we talked about with Venus retrograde, and kind of cultivating those rewards. What may feel like a difficult, and will probably inevitably, this whole thing is difficult. For all of those difficult times, if we handle them with grace, then we will be flown on the brooms with which we swept in earlier states, if that makes sense. Yeah. Azazel. Do you know the origin of the word scapegoat? Before it meant being the fall guy, or it was part of an ancient Semitic ritual mentioned in Leviticus, in which a goat was symbolically given all the sins of the people and set out into the wilderness as a sacrifice to the goat demons. Interesting. The chief of those wild goat demons was Azazel. According to the book of Enoch, before he was the leader of the goat demons, Azazel was an angel who taught humankind how to make weapons and cosmetics, and was cast out of heaven because man used those skills to fight wars and seduce angels. Not unlike Prometheus, the titan who was punished for stealing fire for man, Azazel's most terrible crime was revealing secrets that others then used against God. Before he collected the scapegoats, it seemed Azazel was one. That's very interesting. Weapons and cosmetics to wage war and seduce angels. Alone or together, I think the close proximity of both of these retrogrades, the beauty that we cultivate will fuel our faith, inevitably. And that is yet another resource to fight. People often forget that the Spartan empires weren't just male fighters, the females also used everything to them. And via historical reference, I'm gendering them, but I don't ever really believe that this is talking about specific gender, because both of those can be cultivated within you, and like we talked about in the Venus retrograde, that twin dragon, that Kundalini fire, cultivating the two in one. And this Saturn retrograde is very much the like archetypal masculine presenting itself along with the Venus retrograde. I think is just like this is saying, you know, at the time that we're cultivating, you know, our cosmetics, our mirage, you know, our ambiance, you know, our atmosphere, internally and externally, and you know, the tools to wage the wars is both with, you know, Saturn retrograde, and here, you know, the little things that we do and don't do, the little tasks, the little disciplines that will fuel our faith and fuel our beauty, so that we can walk as a whole being into whatever's next. And if we cultivate these things, it's going to be great. If we do not, it's going to be even harder. That's up to you. That's up to you entirely. Because of his connection with goats, creatures who later came to be closer associated with the devil, who is in many ways a scapegoat for many wrongs, demonologists made Azazel the official guardian of goats. There are many situations that are no one's fault or the fault of so many people that no one person should take the blame. But it's still important that we find one person to punish, whether that person truly deserves punishment or not, which goes back to either of those retrogrades. And stop punishing yourself for shit you don't need to be punishing yourself for, talking negatively to yourself or any of that. There's no use for it. There's no use for it. Leave those punishments in the dust. Unless you're getting off for fun on the self-flagellation, like, fuck it. But also, you know, nobody's trying to be around a downer right now. And we talked about that with another one of the retrogrades. So, I think this is kind of another reminder of that. Do not, the more you know, bisect society in this us or them platform, you also weaken your own stance. The left is very divided. The right is still very divided, but it's less so. Yeah, don't weaken your stance. Don't be that guy. Don't be that asshole. One person to punish, whether that person truly deserves punishment or not. But when good things happen by, again, chance or confluence, we don't spend as much time looking around for one person to reward, do we? And you know what? Again, going back to all that shit that we talk to ourselves, do we say anything as nice to ourselves as often? No. Or anything like as strongly, like we vehemently are like, fuck my body, I'm a terrible blah, 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 and aren't even that passionate when we're like, you're beautiful and you're great and blah, blah, blah. Why can't we do that, you know, both ways to each other? I mean, to each other and to ourselves. And I think that's kind of a nod in that direction as well. Yeah, think about that. Make a list of like 10 things you love about yourself. And why is it so much easier to come up with 10 things you don't like about yourself? And it takes twice the time, if not more, to come up with a list of things you do like about yourself. Like, yeah, fix that. We got the time. Fix that. Beware of looking for someone to blame in situations in which no one person is responsible. Focus on fairness, and offering equal praise for success as blame for mistakes. Focus on fairness and offering... Okay, yeah. Yeah, beware of someone looking to blame. And then in a very literal context, there's a lot of people looking for pointing fingers that they have no business pointing. That isn't helping anybody either. Literally doesn't help the situation. And let's not cultivate hate, because hate is not an emotion we want in our bodies. Why does an emotion we want in, you know, the outside? We've got to, if we're spending all of this work purging hate inside ourselves and you know, doing all of this work like we should be doing through these retrogrades, do not present then the opposite product. Yeah, I could say a lot about that politically. You know, are we blaming people, or blaming people, then people are blaming situations, and people are blaming... And that's not the case. Look, that's not helping, it's not healing, it's not doing any good. So drop it and fucking move on and heal and be compassionate and fucking help out people, you know? But is also speaking of that in yourself as well. But I feel like that also is a macroscopic warning. All right, this is our angel boy, little angel baby. Let's see what you are. Sanusimi, the guardian angel of the blue star. The card is finding and teaching spiritual peace and bliss. Of the Ennead, angels of the blue star empowering the Thunderbird come to guide you at soul level. The blue star is linked to the origins of the Earth and her partner Venus, and may be called the root home. Again, this macroscopic in cahoots and, in tandem with that Venus energy. And may be called the root home, a destination on the way of love and light and the vibration of transcendence through Merkaba, and that some call enlightenment or personal ascension. If this resonates, Sanusimi invites you to connect with him through your crown. His image embodies the sacred dynamics of 5, blue star, thunderbird, moon, and microcosm, and 6, the flower of life, the sun, the macrocosm. As you open your heart of unconditional love to these powers, a miracle can happen. We talked about that green silk dress, all of that heart opening energy. This is where you will start to see those rewards. This is like the macroscopic of that. That's where we open the heart. This is and then some. You open the heart of unconditional love to these powers, a miracle can happen. You see through the eyes of Thunderbird, feel the power of her heart. In fact, you can become a thunder being whose wings transcend the 4444 angel stargate. The veils part and spirals of love or myrrh flood your heart with peace. Maybe that's why these have been so bloody, or like what I've noticed so much in a lot of these, sort of work cards. Not that anything should be specifically not that I'm calling for bloodshed. Not that I'm calling for blood, but, historically, it was how, they cured colds or whatever, was kind of leeching. But ritually, it's a very, very powerful essence of yourself. Blah, 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 blah. The veils part and spirals of love flood your heart and peace. You take the evolutionary flight of the soul to the blue star and through crystalline sacred geometry merge with all that is. As you return, you hold the protective Merkaba light body around you. Your consciousness has expanded into a vessel from which sapphire healing energy flows in infinite light holograms from your heart, fulfilling your soul's purpose. And the other retrograde, we kind of have this infinity, and the chariot being the center of this is, I feel like if we had this spiraling, now we have this spiraling. That's the vehicle to the miracle. That's nuts. That's super nuts. We're gonna have trouble finding momentum to do some stuff for sure, but if you can find the momentum to be negative to yourself, find the momentum to be positive to yourself. It's all the same energy. It's gonna roll regardless. You can choose how it's gonna roll. That's the beautiful thing of this. And I think that's the overall kind of major lesson. It's momentum is momentum. It's gonna roll. You get to choose, if it's gonna roll this way or that way. And, if you're gonna feel good about yourself, or if you're gonna feel fucking useless and worthless. And if you're gonna feel you can, or if you're gonna feel this isn't worth trying. This is gonna be a tough time, and you're going to reap the rewards. I think it's gonna be an interesting time, a difficult time. I think there's gonna be a lot of action-packed energy. But learning how to construe it in a beautiful way is going to ultimately be magical in your life. I don't know. That's intense. We've got some shit going down. But party on. That was a whole bucket of stuff. Yeah, I know that might have been a lot to digest, but I do hope that it was, a little bit of advice to just kind of help us digest this as best as we can, or navigate this whole thing as best as we can, because it's not easy. But yeah, I don't know. Comment and tell me what you think, or whatever you feel called to do. Party on.